Did our parents do us a favor when they told us to sit in the floor?
Well, she's your GenX bestie. She's random and she talks a lot. Yeah.
Do you remember being told to sit on the floor or to figure it out or to go outside and play as a kid? It turns out that was pretty solid advice. So today I thought we'd talk about how we have become too comfortable in modern society and how to get out of the comfort zone. But before we get too comfortable, let's go back 40 years and see what happened this week in 1986. On April 19th, the final episode of Benson aired on network television, and Kiss by Prince was the #1 song on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. On April 21st, Geraldo Rivera hosted a 2-hour special called The Mystery of Al Capone's Vault. Do you remember? Do you remember watching that special? I do. We sat there for 2 hours listening to him yammer about stuff, only to find out at the end that the vault was empty. And on that same day, Sledgehammer by Peter Gabriel was released. On April 25th, 1986, 8 Million Ways to Die and Violets Are Blue were both released in theaters. And if we go back a little farther to 1926, Charlotte Rae was born. Mrs. Garrett would have been 100 years old today. Okay, let's get back to the conversation about being comfortable. I have a few notes today, mostly because I have a list and I will not remember the whole list. We actually, as Gen Xers, talk about being uncomfortable all the time when we talk about our youth and how we spent our younger days. Whether it was that we played outside all day, we were running around in the mud and the grass and the snow, and we didn't care if we were hot and sweaty or a little bit cold and wet. We just did it and had such a good time. I don't even think we realized that was supposed to feel uncomfortable. And, we drank out of the water hose. There were no 44-ounce water glasses being carried around with straws in them, or water bottles required for us to go to school. We had drinking fountains and maybe got 1-2 chances to go get a drink before we went back to class after recess or something. I think we were all probably terribly dehydrated most of the time, which was not good, but was uncomfortable. And it's surprising to think about all of those things being something we should still embrace, because being too comfortable, which we are in our modern society, and I'm going to get into a list of different things and why that is, being too comfortable is bad for us. It's inhibiting our ability to age well. And before I get into too much more, I just want you to remember, I'm not your guru or your life coach. I am not telling you what to do. And I am definitely not your doctor or your therapist. These are just things that this 50-something Gen Xer has been looking at and thinking about as I try to navigate the journey of aging. I find it all interesting and some of it personally helpful. So I'm just sharing in our conversation. So this is not advice. This is just the ramblings of an old lady, okay? Okay. So anyway, where was I? Yeah, we used to ride our bikes, for miles. All day we'd be out on our bikes, the come home when the streetlights come on thing. What else did we do? Well, we went to meetings in the woods, and while being in the woods is good for us, probably some of the other meeting activities we should skip in our older years, but they were good times, right? So getting in the woods, that part was good. It probably wasn't the most uncomfortable part of those little gatherings, though, I'm sure. Anyway, so the reason I started going down this path of the thought that being uncomfortable was actually beneficial was I read a book called The Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter, and it's excellent. I highly recommend it. Anytime I have these conversations with people, I tell them you should read that book. He's got another book called The Scarcity Brain that's also really good. But it kind of is what got me thinking about what can I do in my modern life to be more uncomfortable so that I can age better. And that is what sent me down the kind of the rabbit hole of the different things. He mentions a lot of these in his book. A couple of these I came up with before I read his book, and some of them are just things I've discovered along the way. And I have implemented most of these. Some of them are just things that I've learned about and I find interesting and may or may not do. So anyway, I keep losing my train of thought, you guys. I tried recording this earlier today and I got about halfway through and it was going pretty good. And then the guy across the street started mowing his lawn. And I have like panels that I put in the windows to dampen sound of like cars going by and stuff. But there's no dampening a zero turn riding lawnmower when it's basically right outside the window. So I had to start over. And now I feel a little frazzled because I walked away and I was in the groove. You know, you get in the zone and the flow, and then something happens and it just kind of rattles you. That's where I'm at. So just bear with me on this one, guys. So a lot of the stuff I'm going to list off here are kind of trends or, hacks or whatever. Some of them are new lifestyles, and they're all kind of popular now. And I think the reason that they are getting popular, at least in my view, is because people, whether they're calling it the need to be uncomfortable or a comfort crisis or whatever, they're understanding that how we are living in this digital age is not necessarily the best way for us to be living, and that we do need to get back in touch with some of those older ways of doing things, some of those things that humans have been doing since humans became humans, So, yeah, I think without, whether we consciously are thinking about it in that way or not, we all are starting to realize that we need to be less comfortable. It's not good for us. It's not good for our mental health, our physical health, our emotional well-being, our spiritual well-being. Like, I'm not saying comfort is bad and that we should never be comfortable. I have some pretty comfy chairs and couches in my house, and I like my, comfort foods and all of that. But I do think it would benefit us to make a effort to be less comfortable all the time. Like, we don't need to be always be comfortable. So that is the spirit in which this is shared. I'm not telling you to live a sparse, monastic life in a hut somewhere. Like, that's not the point of this list at all. So anyway, getting back to my list. The first thing I wrote down was rucking. And this is one of the very first things I tried. And I actually came across rucking as an idea well before I read the book I was talking about. My son-in-law is in the military, and in the military, they go on rucks. And so he was telling my husband about those things, and my husband started doing it. And so I started looking into the benefits of that. And it turns out that human beings are designed to work and move under load. Like that is good for our bodies. And honestly, for our brains. When we accomplish something physical like that, it's good for us. It's a good boost for our self-esteem, our confidence in our abilities to do things. And so there can be a lot of benefits to it. Besides the fact that rucking generally will get you out in nature, which we'll talk about being good for you too. So what it is if you don't know, in the military, they have their packs that are full of their gear and their food, their MREs and all that is called a ruck. And they generally can weigh about 100 pounds. And I am not suggesting that a bunch of us old people start carrying 100-pound backpacks and running through the woods. I'm not suggesting that because I'm not doing that. But that's in the military, that's what it is. And they tend to go on longer rucks, like a 20-mile ruck or whatever. But we can adopt it, or I have adopted it, and I need to get back into it because, to be honest, I haven't done it in a while, in a different way. So there are companies, there's one called Go Ruck, and I think it's even mentioned in that book, that they design backpacks that have plates that can go into them of different weights. So you have a functional backpack with this weight in it, and people use them to, they carry them on their commute if they do some walking, or, they go hiking, and they have these rucks, but then they can also keep some of their supplies in there. I don't have one of those fancy ones. I just have a regular backpack, And I have a 15-pound weighted vest, which I tried to wear just as a weighted vest, and I thought it was uncomfortable. So I just threw that in the bottom of the backpack, and I have a 5-pound dumbbell in there. I have some padding and stuff so that that stuff's not like banging into my back while I'm moving. And I just go for a walk. You can ruck. There's like a specific like cadence that you can move. It's kind of in between walking and running or jogging, called rucking. I just go for a walk. I'll go down to the river trail. I'll go down to the dirt road down the street, and I just go for a walk. And I carry a little extra weight because I'm working a little harder. So if I'm going to go for a walk and I throw on the 20-pound backpack, I'm going to burn a few more calories, maybe build a little bit more muscle. And yeah, I'll take any little hack like that I can get. So rucking. Rucking is a way to be a little uncomfortable. Going barefoot and earthing, which are the same yet different. So just going barefoot in general, our feet are always like shoved in these shoes that are narrow, and it's not the natural position our toes are supposed to be in. And it can affect our balance and how our muscles and ligaments and even nerves in our feet function. And if they aren't functioning properly, that can send problems up the whole chain and cause other issues in our bodies. So I have started not wearing shoes as much as possible. Now, I live in the north, so there are times where I never go outside without my shoes on, and even in the house it can be cold, so I'll wear slippers and socks, because socks can even be a little compressing of our toes and feet, and that, contributes to some of the problems we can have. And I know some people have issues like plantar fasciitis and other things that would make it difficult for them to go barefoot. But even just getting your feet out of shoes and socks when you're just sitting down would at least give your feet some space, some room to breathe, right? But I do as much as I can walk around my house without my shoes and socks on. I think it has improved my balance. I know my feet are stronger, and I think it helps with some issues with like my knees and hips that I will struggle with. So that's going barefoot. Now, earthing is similar because generally you're going to be barefoot while you earth, but that's actually coming into physical contact with the earth. Like your body is in nature because your body is nature. You know what I mean? So there's some studies about what some of the potential benefits of that can be. And so I do that. I do think it's helpful. I actually have what's called an earthing mat on my bed. And that is just a conductive mat that plugs into the ground part of an outlet. And so that is grounding me while I'm sleeping. So I have my bare feet and legs on that at night. And I do notice that I feel more relaxed, and kind of some of the tension and aches and pains of the day will kind of dissipate after a little while of laying with my feet on the mat. And I actually have one under my desk over there, so I'll sit with my bare feet on that and try to get as much grounding in as possible, because like I said, we are part of nature. So I think the more we're in contact with it by whatever means we have, the better. So that's grounding and earthing. It can be uncomfortable. It's not terrible. It's like a slightly uncomfortable thing. I mean, you're barefoot, so your feet might get wet and dirty, and I know some people don't like that. But I used to be one of those kids that I didn't mind going barefoot. I would run around barefoot all the time as a kid, but I did not, and I still do not like having dirty hands. Like not dirty like in like if I get dirt like under my fingernails, like so like digging in the garden or planting stuff, like I always keep my fingernails short because that sensation of gunk under my fingernails, it grosses me out. In fact, as short as they are, I need to cut them. They're too long. Stuff can get under there. So, but that's just weird me. Next on my list, now this one I don't do, but when I first read about it, I was like, that doesn't seem right. It's naked running, and I was like, I think that's illegal. I don't think you can do that. But turns out they mean like going running without a device of any kind. So you don't have your phone or music or anything. So you're just running just how we lived in the 80s, unless, we occasionally had our Walkman or whatever. But yeah, just going out and running with no music or anything, just enjoying the sounds of your environment. And I think that's good. The main reason I don't do it is because I don't run. If you are with me and I start to run, it means you should run too, because I'm not trying to get some exercise. There's something behind us, okay? So, but yeah, that's just kind of, was normal life for us back in the day, and people are reconnecting with how important it can be to just kind of set all of that aside and just be present, which is a really important thing, and kind of key to all of these things is, the getting out in nature and connecting with the earth and with your body and all of that. It's just being present, which is so important and something that is really easy to skip out on in our modern day, where we have access to information and entertainment 24/7. Like, it's not like when we were kids and they played the Star Spangled Banner and turned off the TV signal at midnight. There's never a time where you can't find something to entertain yourself with. And so I think it's gotten more difficult for people to just be in the moment. And I've talked about this before. The present moment is all that is actually real, and we're missing it by distracting ourselves. The past is history. It's gone. It's a memory, and future is a dream. And we spend so much time in the memories and the dreams that we're not living in the now. And so I think all of these things can help with that as well. Okay, this next one I have done a couple videos about already, and it's sitting and sleeping on the floor, because I have recently, in recent weeks, adopted this, and I'm sitting on a stool now to talk to you, but I have been trying to spend more time sitting on the floor. And I sit on a cushion. I don't generally just sit on the hard floor. I do some, and like I'll sit on the deck or the patio steps without anything. But when I'm sitting in the living room watching TV, I have like a cushion because it's a little more comfortable. And I'm sleeping on the floor. I've been doing that for about, I think, 3 weeks now, a little over 3 weeks. And I started out with just kind of a mat on the floor made out of like a yoga mat that's thicker, and then I had a 1.5-inch memory foam, and I folded a comforter in half and put it on there, and just kind of did like a makeshift, sort of wanted to try it out. And 4 days in, I was ready to cry. It was extremely uncomfortable, but I knew there had to be an adjustment period. On the 4th day, I did sleep in my bed, and I woke up and realized I didn't sleep any better, and my body actually didn't feel any better, and there were a couple things that felt a little worse. So day 5, I went back to the floor, and I've been there ever since. And about a week ago, I bought myself a Japanese floor futon mattress. So it's a 4-inch thick queen size mattress that is just on the floor, and that's been going pretty well. I'm not uncomfortable doing that anymore. I'm finding I'm getting up out of the floor easier. I'm not waking up with a sore back. I'm waking up a little more alert. Like, I normally am one of those people that has that groggy feeling in the morning, and it kind of takes 45 minutes to an hour to kind of shake it. I'm finding that I'm either waking up not feeling that way, or if I do feel that way, it kind of dissipates faster. So I'm really liking sleeping on the floor, because getting up out of the floor is one of those things that we don't think about as we age, that is going to be important. Your mobility and your independence largely depend on how good your balance is. Can you get up out of the floor? How strong are your bones, which gets into working out and doing things that strengthen your bone, because you can strengthen your bone just like you can strengthen your muscle. And we don't think about little things like that. Like, can I get up out of the floor? Because that's the difference between you maybe at 80 laying on the floor needing help and no one knows, and you being 80 and being able to get up out of the floor, and if you're injured, get help for yourself. So like it can kind of sound a little morbid, but also I think it's just part of aging well. And I also want to be able to get down on the floor and play with my grandkids and get down on the ground and plant my flowers in the spring, or just sit on a blanket in the park and listen to the music at the little stage, or whatever. I want to have mobility, because mobility is freedom, but we have to work to get that. And that's uncomfortable, because it's a lot easier at the end of the day to go sit in the comfy chair with your feet on the footstool, or to pull out the lever, and be comfortable and have your snacks and watch TV, than it is to sit in the floor with your back unsupported, and every time you want something, you have to get up out of the floor to go get it. So I'm choosing a little of that kind of discomfort for long-term gain. Whether, it helps or not, I guess I'll find out. But I can already get out of the floor easier now than I could 2 weeks ago. So I'm going to say it's working. The next thing on my list I've kind of already touched on is time in nature. There are studies, and actually one of them is talked about in the book, The Comfort Crisis. The benefits to your physical health of just being in nature. In fact, there's this whole initiative in Japan called forest bathing, where they take people out into nature just to sit. They're not even doing anything, and it improves their health. And actually being put out in the fresh air and sunshine during the, 1919, the flu epidemic, that was one of the ways that they combated that flu virus, was that they got people out in the fresh air and sunshine, and there were better outcomes when they were doing that. So just being in nature can improve your health. And studies are showing a small amount, 20 minutes a day, 3 times a week, without technology. Like, this gets back to the whole naked running thing. Like, you're not looking at your phone, you're not listening to music, whatever. You're just out in nature for 20 minutes 3 times a week. You'll see those benefits, that will get you into that benefit area. And studies then go on to show that even more time out can improve it even more. So that's a real easy way. And maybe it's a little uncomfortable because you get a little bored, which we're going to get into that too. But or it's a little chilly, or the sun's a little hot, or whatever. We're so used to having temperature controlled, comfort controlled environments, that we have lost our patience for minor inconvenience, like just a little discomfort. And so I think that's a great way, an easy way to improve your health, is just get outside, get out into nature and enjoy it. And like, I think you could even do that on a patio at a restaurant. Eat your dinner on the patio at the restaurant and be outside and enjoy good conversation and good food and good nature, So anyway, getting back into nature is important. Since I just brought up food, the next one on the list is fasting. And I know it doesn't sound fun. And I have actually spent a lot of time working on this in my own personal life. But a lot of times we don't go long enough between meals for our bodies to enter natural systems and programs that it needs to, in order for us to have optimal health. One of those being autophagy. And that generally doesn't happen until at least 12 hours after your last meal. And it can take up to like 16 hours or longer, depending on what your last meal was. So there are a lot of people that a lot of time aren't going long enough for their body to go into autophagy. And it is your body's take out the garbage process. Like, autophagy, your body is cleaning out debris in your cells and broken pieces of cells and all that, and cleaning it up, recycling and reusing what it can, and eliminating what needs to go. And so if you're never letting your body go into that, you're never cleaning house, and your body has got piles of dust in the corners, it's like crusty and dusty, and you're not giving yourself the opportunity to clean up some of those things, and that can all lead to like chronic inflammation, and we know inflammation leads to a lot of different diseases. So I have decided that I want to take it very seriously and clean up the house. So most days now, and I've been doing this probably a year, most days I do what is called the 16-8 eating window. So I have 8 hours every day where I can eat, and then 16 hours I don't eat anything. I drink water, I can have herbal tea, black coffee, but I don't eat anything. I don't consume any calories during that 16-hour window. And 8 of those hours I'm sleeping. Well, I'm in bed. I might not always be sleeping because I'm a 53-year-old woman. But so half of that window I'm asleep, so I don't even know I'm going without food. So I've just stopped eating a little earlier in the evening. Like, I try to finish my dinner and any snacking by like 6 p.m. That's my time. You can pick, if you pick 8, you just go 16 hours from your 8 p.m. to, or if you pick 10 p.m., go 16 hours to the next day. So I stop around 6 in the evening, and that gives me a little grace to go a little later if we go out to dinner or an event or something, because I don't typically start eating again at, what time would that be? 16 hours? Was it 10 a.m.? I normally don't eat by 10 a.m. I will wait until lunchtime usually. And I still eat breakfast foods sometimes at lunchtime, but I push that. And sometimes I try to push that window a little farther. And some days I wake up and I'm starving, and so my window isn't 16 hours, but it's usually almost always at least the 12. So I've adjusted. It was a little uncomfortable, and sometimes I'm hungry, and I just tell myself that's fine. It's okay to be hungry. Just means your body's cleaning some stuff up, and you get to eat. You get to eat in a little bit. And I try to drink some water and focus on something else instead of the fact that I'm hungry. Like, in fact, I'm hungry right now. It's almost dinner time. But that I have found helps with my focus and my alertness and all of that. Because one of the other things it does, besides autophagy, and there are several things that fasting does for you, it makes your body go into ketosis. And I know we've all heard about ketones and all of that. And you usually have to go quite a long time with fasting to get into true ketosis. But if you use up the insulin that you've eaten, your body can use ketones as fuel, and those are more efficient fuel for your brain. So that's just a real basic understanding of ketones. I'm still learning about all of that stuff. But so fasting, we like our snacks, and we like our comfort foods, and we like to eat when we want to eat. But if we can be a little more disciplined with it, and a little uncomfortable sometimes, we can see some really easy benefits that are going to improve life and help us age well. So what else do I have on my little listy list? Did we talk about being bored on purpose? I know I've talked a little bit about being bored, but people are choosing to be bored on purpose. Just go sit and just be bored. You can do it outside, you can do it inside, you can do it any time of the day. And just sitting with your thoughts. And for me, I honestly find this hard to do sometimes, because I'm always like, I want to check on that, or I'm planning a video and I want to research that. And so I can get so in the mode of all of that kind of thinking that I don't just sit with myself. And you can think about something, you can think about nothing, just observing your environment, noticing things maybe that you didn't notice before. Or it can be an opportunity for some really great creativity and problem solving, because you're just sitting with your own thoughts and thinking about things. So a lot of times I will come up with some really good ideas for content or projects around the house, because I'm just thinking about them, and I'm doing some problem solving and brainstorming while I sit and do nothing else. And I think that that's really great because I love music and I will listen to music at every opportunity. But if I'm listening to music, I'm probably thinking about either the lyrics or the artist or an event that I remember hearing that song or whatever. And I'm not just being present. And so that gets back to the being present being important. And yeah, I think we miss out on a lot when we don't allow ourselves to just be bored. It can be uncomfortable because it's boring, but it's really good for us. Going analog. This is an interesting trend that I've been seeing that I think is kind of cool. And it's a lot of younger people that are doing this. They're embracing like VHS and regular television, not even having like the streaming services and all that. They're records and cassette tapes. Like I think is it Magnavox? Maxwell, the cassette tape company Maxwell. They've actually just recently come out with like a Walkman style personal player for cassette tapes. And so I think people are being nostalgic for a time that they've never experienced. It's almost like in a way, kind of a cosplay thing, right? But we're missing tactile experience. And it's harder. It's harder to get a VHS movie than it is to go on a streaming service and rent it or buy it online. But people are wanting to actually own things physically because I think that just makes things more real, in my opinion. Like, yeah, I own that movie because I paid for it on Prime or whatever, but I don't have any evidence of it other than I can go watch it. But I have a dresser in my living room full of DVDs, and I own all of those. And if my internet goes out, if my power goes out because I have a generator, I can still watch any of those movies anytime I want. If I move, I can take them with me. Like, they're mine, right? And so I think people are seeing the value in that. I've never gotten on like the digital reader thing. I had a Kindle for a while, and I tried that, but people are appreciating the printed word again in like a physical form. There's just something about reading a book. I don't like the digital thing, and I don't really even enjoy books on tape that much. I have done a few of those, like on road trips and stuff, to have something different to listen to. But yeah, I don't enjoy that. So people are getting more connected with a slower pace and the analog, the pre-internet computer revolution. And I think that's cool. But it's also a little more uncomfortable. Like tasks weren't as easy back then. Entertainment wasn't as easy to obtain. So I think that's fun. I think that's pretty cool. And then the last one I have, you will never find me doing. I maybe, like if there's an apocalypse, it might just be we're all doing it. But living off grid. Now, to me, that is like the epitome of making yourself uncomfortable because you are having to come up with your own power, water, food, like all like build all your own stuff. And like, look, I'm handy. I can build a thing or two, and I know how to can and all of that, but I don't want to raise chickens. That's another thing a lot of people are doing, is raising their own chickens. I will gladly buy eggs from someone who raises their chickens, but I don't want chickens. I don't want to butcher my own cow or any of that kind of stuff. But I can see how living that way, that is extremely uncomfortable when you look at it by societal standards now, like our modern society, it's got to be rewarding. And I'm sure that those people like are pretty physically fit. They're eating high quality foods. And I'm sure that they feel a sense of accomplishment in what they do and purpose. And so it's probably, while it's a hard existence, I'm sure that there's a large level of peace probably in that. I might go, play at it for a couple weeks. Like if there was a live off grid camp or something, I might try it just to see. I do like camping, so I'm sure I could manage a couple of weeks of off grid living, but I don't have any interest in being that uncomfortable. So a couple other things that aren't really things you do to be uncomfortable, but just in the course of being uncomfortable, you're going to benefit. You're going to sweat. If you're working out, if you're out in the elements, in this summer or whatever, you're going to sweat. And sweating is so good for you. I wrote down a few little things real quick. Sweating detoxes your body of things like salt and urea and clears your pores. So it's good for your skin, like your complexion. If you care about like having a flawless complexion, it can help with that because it's going to clear out your pores. All of your pores, not just your face pores. But one thing I learned that I thought was interesting and didn't know until recently was that when you sweat, your body releases antimicrobial peptides, and those can help defend you against bacteria. So there's a really good health benefit right there. Your body is designed to protect itself with sweat, and you sweat by being uncomfortable. So you ladies that are having the hot flashes and night sweats, you might be invincible. I don't know, because you're getting all these peptides out on your skin, and no bacteria stands a chance against you. But sweating is a really beneficial natural process in your body. And the last thing is sunlight, because if you're out in nature and sweating, more than likely you're going to be in the sun. And I know that there's concern about UV rays and wearing sunscreen and all that, but they've shown that limited amounts of time in the sun isn't going to be necessarily harmful, like 5 to 30 minutes, depending on like the tone of your skin, like whether you are have a lighter or darker skin tone. The lighter you are, the shorter your window that you should be outside is. But some of the things that happen when you are in the sunshine, and some of these things you can't wear SPF for because it blocks the UV benefits. So that's why there's that. I mentioned that window that studies are showing is safe. But vitamin D production, you release serotonin, which is good for your little brain. It regulates your circadian rhythm, especially like if you're getting the morning light. That there's a lot of people saying that if you look at the sun like at sunrise time, it kind of gets your body into its natural circadian rhythm. It triggers the release of UV exposure. This is one of the UV things. It triggers the release of nitric oxide from your skin into your bloodstream, and that dilates your blood vessels, and so it could lower your blood pressure. And then also getting out in the sun helps with skin conditions like psoriasis and eczema. It can help with those rashes. Exposure of children, like younger people, exposure to the sunlight is associated with a reduced risk of nearsightedness as they age. And then some studies suggest there's an association between morning light exposure and body mass index and improved insulin. Now, I don't know about that one, because like my first thought was like, well, how many of those people were out in the morning sunlight because they're working out, like they do a morning run or they do yoga in the park or something? But maybe there is, maybe there isn't. I don't know. I'm not, like I said, I'm not a scientist or a doctor or anything. So that is some of the benefits of sunlight. I think all this stuff is cool. Like I said, I don't do all of it. Some of it I could be better at than I am. But I have found personally, since I have embraced doing some things to be uncomfortable, I feel better. Not just like physically, but I feel better about me. I feel better about my abilities to do hard things. Like, because I'm already doing some things that were really hard at first that now don't seem that hard. And so I feel like I need to take it to the next level. Like with the fasting, for instance, going the 16 hours does not faze me anymore. That's easy. So I feel like I want to try doing some of the longer fasting because as I've read about those, it seems like there can be some really good benefits to that. So I'm at the point where I've done some uncomfortable things. I could definitely do things that make me more uncomfortable. There are people that are living way more uncomfortable lives than I am ever willing to live, but it gives me the sense that I can push myself a little harder because if I can do this, and I've proven to myself I can be uncomfortable at this level, I bet I can be uncomfortable at that level. So it's been really good for me mentally, and physically. Like I said, I can get out of the floor easier now. I actually can stand up out of the floor. I should probably show you guys just to prove it, but I can get out of the floor without like using my hands or having to like shift over onto my legs. I can be sitting on my behind with my feet in front of me, and it is not easy because I am a fluffy girl, but I can get out of the floor without using my hands. So that I think I couldn't do that before. So I feel like I am aging and improving, which like I love that for me. And I would love that for anyone else who's like going after ways that they can improve their life. And I think no matter where we are, there's probably something we can do that makes us a little uncomfortable that ends up making us a little bit better. So, anyway, those are my thoughts and things I have found about being uncomfortable. I would love to know, do you think about the importance of being uncomfortable? Do you or have you thought about it that way at all? Do you do things that you know are good for you that are unpleasant because you know they're good for you? And what are those things? Like my list is definitely not exhaustive. And so I'd like to know what are some other things that you guys think are beneficial and uncomfortable? I think that aging well and being uncomfortable kind of go hand in hand. We need to, head back to 1986 like we did at the beginning and embrace some of the things that we used to do as kids. I played in the floor as a kid with Hot Wheels and Barbies and blocks and all that. I want to be able to play in the floor with blocks and cars and Barbies as a grandparent. So that's where I'm at on the uncomfortable journey. As always, don't forget, you have worth and you are loved. Later, dudes. Okay, like I said, I'm a fluffy girl, so this isn't going to happen fast and it's not going to be graceful. But I'm going to attempt to show you that I can actually stand up without putting my hands on the ground. Okay? So here we go. And I have to sometimes get my brain over the hump of moving my hips. So, and I have to brace myself on my knees. It's a work in progress. Don't judge me. Now I'm probably not going to be able to do it today. Oh. All right, see? It's not graceful. It's not pretty, but I can do it. And it's going to keep getting better because I'm choosing to be uncomfortable.